to episode 26 of the Long Toss here on the Walkoff. This is the Wade Boggs episode. We're going with Wade Boggs, 26 of the Boston Red Sox. Shout out to Wade Boggs. Let us know your favorite number 26 in the live chat. Okay. We got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, trade deadline weekend is here. We're going to review the Jays-Tigers series. We took 3 out of 4 in that series. We're 7-2 since the All-Star break. Kikuchi looked good. Manoah had an injury scare once again. And nice comeback win with Stripling on the mound. Barrios pitched well today. We're going to talk that Manoah scare and reinforcements coming the way of the Blue Jays, hopefully over the next 48 hours. We're going to talk Mike Trout and his freaky, rare, weird back condition, injury. I don't know how to classify this. But the Angels have found themselves in a predicament. I don't know how they're going to get out of this one. Breaking news. Every baseball reporter on the planet is stating that every contender is interested in every available player. And it's getting exhausting. To boot, we have fake Jeff Passan tweets popping up all over the place. So double check the source before you retweet or get your hopes up that your team has landed Juan Soto. Seattle made the first big splash of the trade deadline. They went early and they got Luis Castillo. So we're going to talk that. Benintendi went to the Yankees, and Aaron Pace is having himself a season. I think he's at 42 home runs now, and he's on pace for 68, which is maybe going to threaten the Barry Bonds record of 73 in a single season. I am joined today by 4 of my very best friends. Scott may join us later. Joel may join us later. But for now, we've got Jen, we've got Craig, we've got Rick, and we've got Garth. Some more intros from them in a second. But before we do, shout out to our sponsor. Today's episode and every episode is brought to you by Team Oh My Apparel. Out hustle my yesterday. Team Oh My is partnering with us to produce some merch. So we have some Bad Taco merch maybe coming soon. We ran a little bit of a contest to get the fan art in for a Bad Taco. That's going to be announced on Tuesday. We have some pretty sweet submissions for that, but one that Scott and I are very excited about, so that's going to look pretty cool. Speaking of Tuesday, we are going to be doing a trade deadline day live stream. I don't know if it's going to be an all-day thing or a few hours or what, but we'll get started in the morning and we'll go until we get tired. So teamomai.com, omai_apparel on Instagram. Out hustle your yesterday today. Patreon as well, patreon.com/thewalkoff podcast. Big thank you to David, Abraham, Michael, Sarah, John, Simon, Rashid, Joshua, Jeremy, Ian, Dunedin, Bob, John, and Wyatt. Big thanks to all of you for supporting us there on Patreon. We have movie reviews from Bull Durham to Moneyball. We have behind-the-scenes stuff. We do series previews of every Blue Jays series. We have early access to all of our interviews, unedited, and we have contests for things like this Jose Barrios jersey right behind me. All you got to do, DM us on Patreon and let us know why you want the jersey. That's all you got to do. We have 5 entries in there so far, so your odds are good. Be sure to send us a message. Okay, last thing here. We are raising money with a target in mind, so we are looking to improve the production quality of all the content we're doing here on the Walkoff, but we need a better, more improved computer. So that is what we're working on raising our money for right now, as you can see on the screen there. Fancy little doodle, new computer, fundraising target of basically $1,500 is what we're aiming for. We mentioned it the other day, and we've been kind of blown away by all the support and contributions that have rolled in. We've received donations of every size. I mean, everybody's got their own budget. We appreciate all the support. We appreciate likes and comments. Even if you can't afford $1 or $2, we appreciate you spreading the good word, the gospel that is the Walkoff. Okay, 33% is what we're at right now for our target. So we're getting there. We're getting there, and we're very appreciative of all the support. Okay, now before we get started, one last thing, one last piece of housekeeping. If you're watching in the live chat, we're going to try something new today. Rather than Scott or I trying to read sentences, essays, paragraphs in the comments section here, and be active participants in the panel discussion, we are going to do a 1 to 20 scoring system in the live chat. So if you're watching along at home and Craig makes a terrible point that you hate, we're going to go Dungeons and Dragons style on this, and you just give him a 1 in the chat. And if Jen makes a point that you absolutely love and you think Jen is really nailing it on the head there, drop a 20 in the chat, and feel free to spam that as much as you like. It'll be easy for us to look in and get a gauge of where the live chat feels about the comments being made. So that is the new wrinkle we're throwing at you guys today. All right, let's get to it. Jen, nice to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good. A little disappointed that the Detroit Tigers seem to have left town without leaving anyone behind, but
For now.
that does set up a pretty exciting, hopefully, 48 hours ahead of us.
Big time. Craig, Expos, I was going to say Expos jersey, Expos hoodie, looking good, looking sharp.
Well, first of all, 1 for your comment about me earlier. So I'll just get that rolling. Get that started. It's my favorite part of the week when the walk-off, when you play the game of, is this the week where Scott leaves the show a little bit early, or is this one of the weeks where Scott comes to the show a little bit late? So it's always fun to see when Mr. Telford will grace us with his presence, but great to be back on, as you know, sir.
Definitely. All right, Garth, how are you doing, buddy?
Not bad. Little sunburnt, but I'm getting there. I'm all right.
Sunburnt from yard work or from vacation?
No, sunburnt from being out on the fishing boat every day.
Well, then no sympathy from me here. Rick, how are you doing? Are you surprised by how quiet the trade deadline has been so far?
Yep, I feel like it's going to pick up in the next 24 hours. So, unlike our softball game, we got crushed 21-1 in the playoffs. So, scored the only run though from first all the way to home. I pretty much needed an oxygen tank on the bench, but I'm alive.
Very nice. Right on. All right. Well, let's start with the Jays Tigers series in review here. Kikuchi, he's fixed, right? We're good. We don't have to worry about Kikuchi anymore. He's our guy. He's our number 4.
For now.
For now.
Well,
Jen, what's the real, how are you really feeling about Kikuchi? I mean, it's a good sign, right? But we've played this story before.
It was absolutely a good sign, and he's shown us good signs in the past as well. So who knows whether or not this is sustainable? We've hoped for the best in the past, and then he went on the IL, and so we'll see what happens from here. But I don't think he's going anywhere in terms of being in the rotation. I keep seeing people suggesting that he needs to be traded or needs to go to the bullpen, but I just don't see that happening. Not with, first of all, what they're paying him. They seem to believe in him and believe in his stuff, and they seem to, think that they can turn him around, and that all he needs is a bit of confidence and a little bit of direction, I guess. So I really don't see him going anywhere. So whether he's fixed or not, I think we're going to be seeing him taking that ball every 5 games or so.
Scary stuff. Garth, how are you feeling about Kikuchi and the rest of the starting rotation?
I like Kikuchi when he throws his fastball. I do not like Kikuchi when he decides that he is not a fastball pitcher. I'm not sure, I'm not sure what happened with his neck strain, but I think they kind of hammered it into him that, when he was on the IL for his neck strain, that he needs to be a fastball guy. He throws 97, he can touch 98, and he's terrified of throwing at some games. It's mind-boggling. And I don't know. Is this what we're going to expect from Kikuchi? He'll have a good game. He'll shit the bed 2 in a row, and then he'll come out and throw 6 great innings, and I don't know. I think it's a little too early to tell, but we have another 2+ years of it, so I guess we'll figure it out soon enough.
Oh man, could I ever want to talk about Yusei Kikuchi less? Hey, Craig, how are you feeling about Kikuchi? The Jays Tigers series in general, we saw everybody except Gossman pitching. What are your big takeaways from this series?
I'm significantly confused with Kikuchi. You had 2 days before he made that start, you had Pete Walker saying that's a new grip on the slider. We've a new arm slot for the fastball. 3 different mechanical changes, like huge wholesale changes. And then the very next day, Pete Walker saying, oh, really? I was surprised that got a lot of play. I don't feel like we've tweaked a whole lot. So, I mean, I don't know what to think with Yusei Kikuchi. The consistency isn't there. Ironically, I think that part of what Jen was talking about is something that could play in the hands of being positive, as a positive message to Kikuchi, because yes, this team does not have a choice but to throw him out there at this point every 5th day. And then to Garth's point, if you are, regardless of whatever the issue is, because he can't go in the bullpen, he walks too many batters, can't be in the bullpen. So you're going to go out there every 5th day, take that ball and just let it fly with reckless abandon. That would be my messaging to him going forward. I know it sounds odd, but yeah, you are. We don't have a choice, you say. So you don't need to be looking over your shoulder. Let it go out there, let it fly. If he's out there and letting it fly, then he's not aiming that fastball. And it is 97, 98 with movement, and it can find the corners in that scenario. So that would be my messaging for Yusei Kikuchi going forward. I mean, I'm trying to be a glass half full guy here that, that maybe he does have a future and can contribute in the second half. I felt like from day one, this was an absolute Atkins and Shapiro blunder. I have no idea why he was on the radar at all. I'm not a Yusei Kikuchi fan, but again, I mean, to Jen's point, this is what we've got right now. Right here, right now, he's going out there every 5th day. So I really have no choice but to begrudgingly get behind him at this point.
Well, and to Craig's point about letting it fly, I think you put Danny Jansen behind the plate and you let him call the game, and you tell Yusei, you throw what he puts down.
Yeah.
He will catch it. You throw what he puts down. Stop thinking. Do what your catcher says.
I can't take anybody seriously with Joel in the corner down there.
Joel, what's going on? You couldn't have brought a green screen with you, Joel, and pretended a little bit?
No.
How you doing, Joel? Nice to see you.
Screen. Do you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hear me? No?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. That's impressive.
This is going to be terrible.
It's nice to be here. It's probably going to be terrible.
It's all right. We were just talking Jays Tigers series and review, pitching staff in general. Kikuchi looked good. Manoah injury scare with the comebacker off the funny bone. Stripling pitched all right. I think he left midway through the 5th. Barrios looked good today. So how are you feeling about this rotation, this team in general? And then let's take a look at the trade deadline with the Blue Jays in mind for everybody. What would you consider to be a failure, and what would you consider to be a win for the Blue Jays at this deadline, as we're 48 hours away?
Well, for our pitching situation, it's that I would say that it's that you're one injury away from the entire house of cards falling down. Mm-hmm. So that definitely needs to be dealt with. A win here at the trade deadline, it's tough because I think one of our topics is every manager, GM wants everybody from everyone. Yeah. So it's really, really tough when so many teams are in contention. What do we need? We need bullpen help. We need another arm. I feel I've been wanting a lefty bat for the entire season. I've wanted that, but I feel like you have to trust in what the offense can provide you and shore up the holes in the pitching staff. I think that has to be your focus to make it as quickly as Well, I think that's where you got to focus. So a win would be starter and probably 2 bullpen arms, and a loss would be anything else.
Anything less than that. Fair enough. All right, Rick, let's go to you. We haven't heard from you yet. How are you feeling? I mean, we could talk Jays, but we can also put the White Sox in frame for a second, as they are one of those teams who's going to be not selling, to say the least, at this trade deadline. What are you expecting for the White Sox? Are they going to buy? Are they going to be making a push to add? Or
They said for the latest report I read is that they are not going to be sellers. There had been some rumors that they might try to get rid of Lynn and Giolito, but that had came out as untrue. They are going to be buyers. From what I've been reading, it's basically going to be bullpen help. I mean, they are getting back healthy. It's like a whole nother team. I mean, they got Eloy Jimenez back. Robert's been out with dizziness. He'll be back. They got Lynn back. I mean, the thing you're just seeing now is you're seeing, because we haven't had that full team, you're seeing all that inconsistency throughout the year. You're getting a couple wins. Hey, we're getting good. And then all of a sudden a couple losses. Even with, I think we won yesterday, you're looking at still 3 back of Minnesota. Nobody is running away with that division. If we were in your guys' division, done. There'd be no chance. But I mean, we still have 60 some odd games. I think we'll be fine. But like I said, nothing big. They're never going to sign anybody too big. They've never made that big splash. It's been a while. So I believe, like I said, just some bullpen help.
Craig, do you want to jump in here with what you want to see the Blue Jays do this trade deadline?
I'm in such a minority here. You said what would be a failure? For me, a failure would be putting all the chips, going all in 2022. That to me would be a failure. We've seen Atkins and Shapiro, especially Atkins, talk at length that there is definitely a big move coming. I'm going back to spring training to now, that there between now and the trade deadline, there is definitely a big move coming. I've seen Atkins, we all have on more than one occasion, talk about they've got the resources and the money from Rogers to make, in fact, multiple big moves. So I was always anticipating that. But now look at the landscape, how things have played out from this season. The things have gone so south this season that they've moved on from their manager. They wouldn't have seen that coming. So at the very least, that part of the landscape has changed. That part of their thinking for the season has changed. Is there anything that can happen with this team right now? Any trade that could happen that is not Juan Soto that propels the Toronto Blue Jays ahead of the New York Yankees, the Tampa Bay Rays, the Houston Astros, and yeah, I say the Tampa Bay Rays. The Toronto Blue Jays, everything imploded for the Toronto Blue Jays when they lost Ryu, Merriweather, Pearson, and Baraki to injury. They're counting on these guys for big things. There's 4 guys. Tampa's down about 13 guys, and they're getting guys back, and they've treaded water. We're going to see a push from them. So Tampa and the Yankees in our own division, in the Blue Jays' own division, plus Houston. What trades are out there that can happen that propel the Blue Jays ahead of any of these teams? And then you still have to explain to me what trades could happen that propel the Blue Jays ahead of the LA Dodgers or the Atlanta Braves if and when you get to the World Series. So I've shifted my focus from the Blue Jays being a 2022 World Series team. I hope Shapiro and Atkins have as well. If it's anybody other than Frankie Montas, I don't want to pay the price. Now, I'll caveat it, as you guys know, I'm not an Otto Lopez believer or a Jordan Groshans believer. So if either one of them, if that's what the all-in for 2022 is, okay, I'm fine with that. But I'm talking, you got, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen here, we saw the haul. For Luis Castillo. Holy crap. That's another thing that's changed, by the way, in the landscape since spring training, is we see what the price tag is now for these players. Wow. So I actually hope, if there is moves coming, that they address 2023 and going forward. And I know that's wet blanket because people want, hey, what about 2022? Man, I don't feel as good about 2022 as a lot of Blue Jay fans do.
I'm kind of with you, Craig. I hate to say that I'm with you. I know I'm looking at the live chat here, and we're getting ones for Craig. So definitely people feeling the wet blanket from Craig there.
Does anybody remember? Does anybody remember who won the World Series last year?
Yeah, the Atlanta Braves.
Yes, Braves.
And what was like? You need to make it to the playoffs. You make it to the playoffs,
100.
Shit happens. No one this time last year was saying, oh, the Atlanta Braves, man, they got a great shot at winning the World Series. Nobody, not even Atlanta fans were saying that.
Get hot at the right time.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter. Get there.
So we have a good team. Do we have a great team? We'll find out. But to say that we're just going to give up on this year because, well, the Yankees are really good. Who gives a shit? The Dodgers they were an all-time team last year, and they didn't win.
Let's not forget to look at that Mets series too. I mean, to be fair, 15 out of the 18 innings, the Yankees didn't have a hit against the Mets. So they can come back down to earth. They're not unbeatable.
Exactly. And the point that I want to make is we are in that window of contention, and to just forget about 2022, that's for Atkins. That's a dereliction of duty.
Can I jump in here? And I maybe Craig can defend his take here, but my interpretation of Craig's take was not to just punt on 2022, but like there is a gray area middle ground between going all in on
I'm not saying
Luis Castillo and overpaying for
Elvis and like empty the farm system for Montas or Lopez, but like we are a good team and we need a starting pitcher, at least one swing and miss guy in the bullpen, and if we can get a lefty bat on the cheap, why not? But to not, to just say that like we're not in it this year because the other teams are so good, that's not acceptable.
Can I ask Craig a question?
Please.
So if you don't want them to go all in on 2022, my question is, would you like to see them add rentals right now and pay a really low acquisition cost and then start stocking up in the off season? Or would you like them to spend more right now, but add guys with control so that they're not just trying for 2022, but they're also taking care of 2023, 2024?
And that is the gray area that Adam's talking about there. Exactly correct. So if it's going to be a short-term guy and and that helps in 2022 and the price tag is a Lopez or a Groshans, as I said, I'm all there for that. Right now, when I take a look at the rumors right now, especially on Blue Jay Twitter, Aurelvis Martinez and Gabriel Moreno, Blue Jay fans are making it rain with with our top guys right now, completely willing to part in any scenario. I'm nowhere close to that. If parting with them can address 2022, great, but it addresses 23 and 24 and 25, that's something I'd be way in for. I think that's, you said it, Adam, the gray area, because Garth seems to have interpreted as punting on 20. No. What did last year's playoffs show us? In fact, last year's playoffs showed us if the Jays made the playoffs last year, they were going to win the whole darn thing. That's what drives me nuts about last year's playoffs. If they made the playoffs last year, they were going to win the whole darn thing. So there's no doubt about it. If you qualify, yes, absolutely yes. But there's a lot of teams on a lot of different walk-offs. There's a walk-off in New York, you name it, that can say the same thing. So I'm not super moved by that. But yeah, no, I don't want to punt on 2022 by any stretch of the imagination. My point was, when you look at how long Shapiro and Atkins have been talking about a huge trade or trades up will be coming, the landscape since they started talking about that has changed so much that I really think that their thinking has changed. In fact, we know their thinking has changed. They've pulled the plug on the manager already. So I think their thinking has changed. I don't want to sell the farm for something that's going to be for 2022 only. So if it's a rental, to Jen's question, and the price tag is Groshans, yes, please. The price and maybe I'm wrong about Groshans and Otto Lopez, by the way, but time will tell on that. If it's someone like that, man, Tiedemann, Moreno, and Martinez, holy cow! And it's not a Montas or a Soto coming back. Wow.
But that's the thing. They're never going to give up a Relvis or like one of their top guys for a rental. That's not going to happen.
I hope not.
No,
it's also it's not the big splash that brings either. How many times do they sign a huge guy or some guy like Soto? Usually it's a smaller moves at the deadline that makes sense. I mean, look at Duvall last year coming in with the Braves. It's always that smaller move that puts everything together. So I think, for the Blue Jays, maybe it's just some smaller moves. I just want to get your guys' thoughts on that. Do you think bigger moves, smaller moves?
I'll jump in first. I'm kind of to the point where, I mean, a week ago, if you had asked me, I was hungry for a Castillo or a Montas, or we do have holes that need to be fixed, and I would be happy with some unsexy trades at this point. But if we don't make a single move and we just stand pat with the team the rest of the year as it is today, I'm going to be disappointed by that.
I really think they need to add a controllable starting pitcher. And I know that means giving up things are, you don't want to give up. But as we've said last week, and as we've already said tonight, that starting rotation is in a very perilous condition right now, right? With Manoah, I mean, we saw that injury scare, but even not injured, and he's stated that he's pretty sure he'll make his next start. But they have to limit his innings heading into the playoffs as well, right? So you've got to get somebody else to come in Kikuchi, who knows? That's why I'd like Stripling to go back to the bullpen, if at all possible. Make some spot starts to push Manoah back and limit some of his innings. I think they have to add a controllable starter.
So one note, well, actually two notes with that, Jen, is a Stripling does not go deep into ball games right now either. 58 pitches his last outing, 62 pitches the outing before. So if we're talking about we're going to be crawling back on Manoah innings, who's our best pitcher, and then we're also going to have Stripling, who we refuse to put a third time through the lineup. Like, it's going to deplete our bullpen so much. It scares the fucking shit out of me, to be honest, no matter who we get, if we don't get a starting pitcher. And
well, that's what I'm saying. It's not sustainable what they're doing. Not at all.
Yeah.
Well, and you have to look into 2023 for that too. Like, we don't have Ryu next year. So like that, we're going to need a starting pitcher, whether it's now or the off season, and starting pitchers aren't cheap.
Here's
monetarily or prospect wise, they're not cheap.
I was just going to say that the last thing I was saying, trade deadline, I think the best thing that can happen to the Toronto Blue Jays in the second half of the season, I think we'll all be on the same page here. Bo Bichette's 30 to 40 points lower than he should be. Slim Daddy Vladdy's about 20 to 30 points lower than he should be. The Toronto Blue Jays here on this roster right now that are at that party in Florida with each other right now, the Toronto Blue Jays on this roster, we need a second half like Lourdes gave us last year, a second half like Teo gave us last year. The guys on the roster need to bring it. Matt Chapman's showed up to the party, hasn't he, lately? Matt Chapman has arrived. We need great second halves from the rest of this lineup.
20s for you on that, Craig. Question then, as far as the we talked a few times throughout the year about expanded playoffs and how it's affecting the competitive balance of Major League Baseball, whether it's been a benefit, whether it's had no impact. I would say going into this trade deadline today, the temperature feels like more teams are in on the trade deadline than ever. More teams are buyers. Fewer teams are sellers, right? Like even the Baltimore Orioles would have been a seller with, if without an expanded playoffs, right? But like they see it on the horizon as being closer than they otherwise would have been, right? And maybe they have a shot next year. So I guess what I want to put out to everybody is whether or not we see fireworks over the next 48 hours. I believe that this is going to affect free agency spending in a big way. I think that a lot of GMs and team owners didn't necessarily anticipate the way that the trade market would play out, but it is going to be stiff competition. So if we're talking about the Blue Jays fixing their starting pitching solutions or their bullpen needs or whatever, and there's 10 other teams who are also in the exact same boat, because you can go down the list and it's basically everyone over 500 as a buyer at this point. How much does that affect, or how much do you think it should affect the team approach, Blue Jays specifically, in the offseason? Should we be willing to go out and offer more contracts? And do you think that that is kind of going to affect it across the entire league in the offseason? So I guess that's an open-ended question, but how do you think that this particular trade deadline with expanded playoffs in mind is going to affect free agency next year? Joel, let's start with you because your internet's kind of shoddy. So
It sure is.
Appreciate you though. Appreciate you calling in from whatever cabana you're at.
Yeah. No, it really is an interesting topic. The way that it's going to affect free agency. Like, I think you have to almost look at making your moves at different points in the season, if that makes sense. You look at like the Yankees bringing in Matt Carpenter and what a move that has been for them. You have to be a lot more on point when it comes to player acquisition, because the time we need to acquire players such a crapshoot, because everybody's vying to get to those playoffs, get that playoff money. And so you have to be open 365 days a year to be able to build your team, because if you're not, you're just one of those teams with a deadline approaching and everybody needs pretty much the same things. So yeah, it's tough. It's made things really, really tough to acquire players. And there's wasps everywhere. Dude, man, I'm having a hell of a time.
All right. Well, at least you're suffering a little bit. We appreciate that. All right, Jed, let's throw to you. I just want to use the Luis Castillo trade and compare that to the price tag that we paid for Jose Barrios last year, because it feels like two very similar trade pieces between Castillo and Barrios, where and the price tag that we paid for Barrios last year feels substantially less than what the Mariners just paid for Castillo. So for me, that is the example that, like, I guess argues my point that like everything is just getting inflated, right? So
right.
How are you feeling about things?
Just like the cost of bread, right? Every
yes.
All prices have gone up, it seems. But that goes back to what you were saying, which is that with these expanded playoffs, every team or most teams have a reason to feel like they're in it to some extent. And, you know, if you are a team that is going to end up selling, you want to get back into it as quickly as possible. Some teams don't seem to quite grasp that, but you know what I mean, right? Like you want to get back that high price tag. You want to get back those MLB or nearly MLB ready prospects so that within a year or two, you're right back in the mix. And so the teams that want to be buyers, like the Blue Jays, have to pony up the price tag. But that's the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
Right. This is a business. This is the entertainment business, and all of these team owners, you know, this is an investment. This is part of their, you know, they've got to look at that and what's the acquisition cost? What does that project to perhaps in terms of wins? What do those wins project to in terms of generated revenue? And they have all of those calculations that they do. All of that is taken into account. Like, it's a much bigger picture than just losing, you know, minor league talent, right? Mm-hmm. They're looking at that big picture of, if we do this, what is the long-term or the short and long-term revenue that gets generated from potential wins?
Totally.
I think I think the cost that Seattle paid for Castillo, though, like, would not making the playoffs for 21 straight years, did that play into it? You know, Seattle, they need to make the playoffs this year. You know, like they've knocked on the door how many times in 20 plus years? So did they overpay? Probably, you know, but but that's specific to that team. Like, they need to make the playoffs this year.
Well, and they might have also made it so that their competitors need to overpay.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is good for them.
Yeah, like it might scare off teams like the Jays from making a deal, because they're like, holy shit, they gave up 3 of their top 4 prospects for Castillo. Like, so, but I think the Castillo price had a lot to do with the situation that Seattle's in. I'm not sure. Like, I think the actual price might be somewhere in the middle of the Barrios and Castillo, and the Barrios thing. Like, Austin Martin wasn't supposed to just lose all of his power this season. Like, he was a legitimate top prospect, and he just hasn't panned out.
Let me ask you this, and Garth, we'll start with you, and then we can move on here. But do you think that there's a chance trade deadline over the next 48 hours is just quiet? Do you think that there's a chance? I mean, we've got Juan Soto's available, and Shohei Ohtani's, you know, everybody's taking calls on everybody. But do you think that there's a chance that, you know, like with what I just said about teams maybe going after it harder in free agency, do you think that there's a chance a team like the New York Yankees or the LA Dodgers just sit this one out and they go, you know what, we are not going to overpay this year because we can go hard in the off season, and Is there an anticipation maybe that the prices come back down next trade deadline in 2023?
See, the thing with free agency is it just costs money. That's all it costs. It costs a lot of money.
Yeah, you could fill a hole and you don't have to give up a prospect or do anything, right?
Exactly. And like the Dodgers and the Yankees both have really strong farm systems. They have guys that are knocking on the door that, like, I could see. I know Yankees Twitter will lose their minds if they don't pull the trigger. Like, they seem to think that the sky's falling, but I could see them maybe picking up a smaller piece, but maybe trying to dump Gallo on somebody for something. But I could see the Yankees and the Dodgers kind of sitting this out because, I know the Yankees are they're really high on Volpe and stuff, and they're not gonna give him away for a pitcher. Like, they're just not.
Yeah.
So I think they wait till free agency.
Yeah.
One of the things I was seeing from John Heyman on there was Ian Happ. How would would he be a good fit for Toronto, do you guys think? With the left-handed bat that they're needing, do you think it would cost too much to get him from the Cubs?
Well, the good thing with Happ is he could play center, and with Springer, really, I'm sure we'll get to him later.
I've got it on my list of topics.
Honestly, so yes, Ian Happ would be a great target for the Toronto Blue Jays.
I was seeing there was some stuff linked there, so.
All right. Let's talk, speaking of center fielders with medical crises, Mike Trout. Let's talk Mike Trout for a bit, because this is, as a baseball fan, just terrible news. What do the Angels do, for one, with Mike Trout, and what do they do with the team around him? Let's start with the fact, for anybody that hasn't heard yet, Mike Trout has been, diagnosed with a rare medical condition in his back. He's fucked. Despite what he says his career is not over. I don't think his career is over, but it has to be impacted significantly. How should the Angels proceed with this? We can take this as focused as we want to, or we can broaden things out and include Shohei Ohtani and a rebuild and whatever that might mean to you. But Craig, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on Mike Trout? I know last week when we talked, you said 0 chance that Shohei Ohtani is traded. Has this Mike Trout news swayed you at all, or is this now more than ever they need to stick with Shohei Ohtani? I'm very curious. No,
it's completely independent of each other. Remember, the reasons why I'm saying Shohei is not going anywhere is that wasn't your typical free agent signing. This was a this was a business that was Shohei and a business that was the LA Angels, and they made this a conglomerate. This was a very specific union. It's not going anywhere. It's a money-making machine. There's nothing. I see that as totally separate.
Okay.
The LA GM being in his 3rd year, for me, boy, oh boy, I just can't imagine he has buy-in from ownership to even look at moving Trout. Even if he did, wouldn't we all have to agree that how could Trout's trade value have not diminished at this point?
Yeah, there's nothing you can get back for Trout.
Right? I think if you're the Angels, this is a marriage that's taken place. These two are going to be together. Should the Angels have traded Mike Trout somewhere along the way? Do I ever think there's a case to be made for that. They didn't. Now is not the time to do it. I think you need to stand by your man, that old song there. I think they're going to be together for a while. I hope there's the pessimist, Adam. They're saying, I don't believe anything. I hope Trout's right because he did say, wait a minute, it's not as bad. To your point, Adam, what was he going to say, right? If this really is a realization of his life that his baseball career is not, it's going to take him a while to come to that and be okay with that and talk about that. So I do hear you there. But boy, oh boy, I said last week, if I'm the Anaheim Angels, I'm not focused on Trout or Shohei. I'm focused on anything else I can do to get pitching. I don't care who rounds out the rest of the offense at all. I'm throwing all my money, all my resources on pitching going forward. They've needed pitching for upwards of 20 years in that dang organization. So that is all I'm focused on. But no, there won't be any Mike Trout moves coming. There won't be any Shohei Ohtani moves coming. As a baseball fan, we just got to hope that Trout can play through this. This is one of those things that we see with our favorite football players, right? We worry about their quality of life afterwards. That's where my mind went from Mike Trout. Like, is this now a quality of life question? Because wouldn't we all be sick to our stomach if that was the case?
Big time. I mean, some things are bigger than sports, right? Wish Mike Trout all the best. Let's talk more with Mike Trout, though. I'm not suggesting that they trade him, because I think, the absolute trade value has fallen out of the bottom on Mike Trout, right? There's no way they could trade Mike Trout. But what can they do to, if we want to say, like, load management or pain management or whatever? Is there Scott and I were talking about this on Friday. Could they move him into a full-time DH role? You know, they just moved on from Albert Pujols last year, who was their overpaid full-time mega contract DH. Problem with that is they've got Shohei Ohtani, who is a full-time DH, right? You can't have two full-time DHs. So would it even make a difference, do you think? I mean, the back is the swing is so tied to the back, right? Like, it's not just sore feet or a bad, like, I don't know what the answer is right now, but this is why I want to throw to you guys. How can the Angels maximize what they do have left of Mike Trout, right? Whether or not he's able to play at 100% for fewer years or at a reduced capacity for another 10. How would you like to see this play out as a baseball fan? And let's just pretend we're LA Angels fans. As a fan, what do you want to see the LA Angels do with Mike Trout in terms of, load management or anything creative like that? Move him to first base. I don't even know where to start. But Joel, let's go with you. You're nodding along.
I said that they should have moved him to first base before the season even began. He's your commodity. His defensive value had gotten to a point in center field where he was an average fielder. He was like, so what are you paying him for? Are you paying him for slightly above average fielding, or are you paying him for a 1,000 OPS seasonally, right? And you needed to keep them both healthy and in the lineup, and that hasn't even done it. Like, for the most part, a fairly healthy season up to this point has led to them being 15, 20 games out. So it's a situation where it's like the Dark Knight tagline, right? You either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And that might just be the case, right? Like, it's your back. I remember when Matt Kemp had a hip issue and it was chronic. Those chronic health issues, and when it's a sport like baseball, when you need everything firing to be able to hit a ball because it's the hardest thing to do in the world, man, it's funny because we all at the beginning of the year become Angels fans. We all dream of seeing those guys in the playoffs. We all want Ohtani. We all want Trout to be in the playoffs for the sake of the game. And then come this time of the year, we're all disappointed. So I don't know. I don't know what moves to make. I don't know what moves to make when you got a $440 million guy that nobody wants to touch and he's the face of baseball. It's just really sad. It's just a really sad situation.
I couldn't agree with you more, Joel. Jen, do you want to touch on that?
I mean, he sort of said it all right there.
Yeah.
I don't know how you manage an injury like that because I don't know the extent of it, right? None of us know the extent of it. We know that Trout is saying that, he is eyeing a return, but what does that look like? And does he actually return, right? And we've seen some, incredible athletes go down due to back injury, right? Like, that has signaled the end of their career. I suffer from chronic back pain as well. And I mean, I don't have the resources that these guys do in terms of treatment, although I was seeing an athletic therapist for the Leafs.
Just think about Tiger Woods, right?
That's the perfect analogy. I mean,
well, that's who I was alluding to, right? Yeah. But, it's a really, really difficult thing to manage, even when you have the best of care, because these guys, so you think of Tiger Woods and having to swing a golf club, and you think of Mike Trout having to swing a baseball bat, and the mechanics that go into both. I don't know that what he's dealing with will be manageable. So sure, you can move him to first base and that might help, but if he can't swing the bat the way that he's supposed to, the way that he's designed to, the way that he always has, are you now tinkering with his swing? Like, what are you doing? Right? So same thing if you were to move him to DH. Well, okay, well then you got to trade Shohei if you want to move Mike Trout to DH, right? That's kind of your only move there. But I don't know, and it is incredibly sad that we as baseball fans have got to witness this phenomenal talent, and he's never reached the promised land. And now this is how the career might end. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they do. I still think there's a possibility that they trade Shohei for the right price. They're not giving him away. I think it's a possibility, but that becomes a even tougher sell now with your fan base. Hey, the face of baseball has this devastating injury. Oh, and by the way, this other face of baseball, the MVP, we're shipping him out of town.
If Castillo got that much, think about how much Ohtani would bring in. And then if you're trading Ohtani, you're almost admitting to a rebuild then. Sure. I would think, which I can't even remember the last time the Angels have done a rebuild. It's been so long.
Maybe they should.
A huge contract.
You're the franchise with 4 MVPs, and none of those seasons you got to the playoffs.
Correct.
You had 4 MVPs, and that never got you to the postseason. Like, what have you done to those players?
Was this something that was just diagnosed, or was this something he's been playing with for a while? Does anybody know? Did anybody read on it?
I haven't seen anything official, and I can't imagine that there would be any true revelations in that regard.
I feel like it's a recent revelation, though, right?
Yeah, because he's got 24 home runs with 51 RBIs, and that's with a back problem. I mean, that's pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, everything just says he was diagnosed with this rare back condition, which has been causing him discomfort, but it doesn't indicate when that discomfort began.
24 home runs with back discomfort. My God.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think he was bitten by a spider recently and now has a back condition. But also, like, it might just be the sort of thing that just continues to deteriorate. He's on the wrong side of 30 at this point. He's making
$37 million a year.
Is guard. Yeah, he's making a lot of money. If he, God forbid, worst case scenario, has to retire, doesn't play another baseball game, still a Hall of Famer, right? We can all agree on that. Short
Hall of Famer or not? 4 years ago.
Okay.
3-time MVP.
334 home runs. Yeah, good numbers, good awards. Man, just a shame. Just a shame what's happening.
You just gotta take the years he played, because you can't do the thresholds because he's only played 12 years as of right now.
It's a Sandy Koufax situation.
Yep.
It's a what could have been.
Yep.
I do think that this takes him, I don't want to say takes him out of it, but would seriously hamper his resume in the greatest baseball players of all time conversation, right?
If you look at peak, no way. Like, people who watch Mike Trout know they're watching something special. And that is never going to change. Like, growing up, the best player I ever watched with my own eyes in a stadium was Ken Griffey Jr.
Yep.
And his last decade of playing was like a far lesser junior than when he was in Seattle.
There's people
but that
who
doesn't change the fact that he is still the greatest player that I've ever seen with my own eyes.
There's people who will fight saying he's better than Barry Bonds if he's healthy. I've had people fight tooth and nail on that one.
Here's a clarification that I want to make, because I've had this conversation when it comes to hockey players a bunch. For me, there is 2 different questions wrapped in there that can be unpacked. Talented versus greatest is two different categories, in my opinion. Wayne Gretzky is the greatest hockey player of all time. I would say Mario Lemieux is the most talented I've ever seen, and I think he was more talented. But health is a factor. Mario Lemieux missed time.
I'm not
Gretzky
saying
played.
It's not a factor when it comes to greatest, but there is no doubting Mike Trout's greatness. Anybody who knows anything about baseball, who has two eyes, knows that he is one of the 10 most talented players of all time.
Yeah.
Yep. By tool.
I think that's a generational argument too, right? Because you're going to get people saying that, like I said about Koufax, but you're going to get people saying that about DiMaggio, who retired in the low 300 range for home runs, that he was the greatest player people have ever seen. So, you know, when you get that stamp, when people stamp you with that greatest I've ever seen tag, you're immortalized. You'll be fought for, you know, till those people die and their children die and their children die. So it's immortality at this point.
And he's in that conversation.
Absolutely.
So whether he retires tomorrow, it doesn't change. It's not going to affect Mike Trout's legacy as one of the greatest baseball players ever. It's not. It's just not.
He still has a .416 on base percentage, and to Joel's point, an OPS of 1,000 consistently. So, I mean, to me, I agree. It's a Hall of Fame career, no matter what.
Hall of Fame, most likely first ballot. If he's not on the first ballot, Hall of Fame, that's an absolute crime. Let's talk other hitters now for a second. Let's pivot to one Aaron Judge, who I believe as of today is at 42 home runs and is on pace for 68. I mean, we can take so many angles we can take on this. What do the Yankees do with him? Where is he playing next year? The angle that I'm most interested in is just this home run race the rest of the year. He's racing himself, and he's racing historically Barry Bonds and the number 73. Is there any chance that he can catch that number? Any chance he can get to 70? I've seen a lot of head shaking here. So let's go with Rick first, and then we'll throw it out to everybody. What are your thoughts on what he's doing? And
what he's doing is great, but he needs to stay healthy. The Yankees need him to stay healthy. If they're going to win, it's going to be him and Stanton staying healthy. And I just think when it boils down, you're going to see them not sit him, but they're going to try to make sure that he stays healthy for their playoff run. I mean, that's why I don't think he's going to break it personally, in my opinion.
Good point, Craig.
The other gentleman that have put up big numbers for home runs, they were doing it against AAA pitchers in September. Remember, the landscape of baseball is completely different now. Not only to your point you raised earlier, Adam, every damn buddy, I think you only eliminate the last place team, and every damn buddy makes the playoffs now in baseball, for crying out loud. So you're going to see, you know, pedal to the metal baseball all the way through. You're going to see teams giving you their best shots all the way through. And that's the big thing, ladies and gentlemen, here. There's no call-ups anymore. There's no expanded rosters. There's no AAA pitchers for the last month and a half, 2 months, whatever it is. Let's take a look what we got with this AA, this AAA guy. It's going to be all major leaguers for the entire season. To Rick's point, how could you not tip your hat to what we've seen from Aaron Judge? This is a Blue Jay fan saying, I literally go, all right. Like I'm literally into, because I'm a baseball fan as well, right? So I'm literally into what Aaron Judge is doing this season. He could slow down. There's the Blue Jay part of me. Fine. He could slow down any fine. There's the Blue Jay part of me. But as far as getting 7, even the pace he's on now, 68, no chance.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he could maybe hit 60. I think that would put him in the conversation then with Babe Ruth in terms of those hallmarks in a season. But I agree in terms of the quality of pitching that he's going to see from here on out, and whether or not the Yankees decide to give him a few rest days in there. I think 70 is probably off the table.
Like what McGuire did to get to 70, this isn't even 73, but what McGuire did to get to 70 was, I think, he had like home runs on 12 swings to end the season. Like just the stuff that they did performance wise is absolutely insane. But for Judge, he's going to be playing against teams in the AL East that are all in contention and aren't going to want him hitting a 3-run bomb to beat them, right? Like they're going to pitch around him because of the amount of contention and the amount of teams that are in contention as well. But the thing that I want to bring up is if he hits 62, how do we look at that? How do we look at a clean 62?
Well, that's what I was going to say. He's doing this without help.
Right? So do we look at 62 and say, that's a different record? That's a different. We have to asterisk it. They're not going to asterisk it. They're not going to make it any special. But does that 62 get, some pats on the back from Major League Baseball fans to say that number's a lot more special than a lot of those other 60s?
Well, then, Kami, the same asterisk applies. Then we need to get it down to 60 then, because 61 came with the expanded seasons, right, Kami? So how far back go with this asterisk? So I'm out.
I know. I'm not saying put an asterisk to it, but does it get that acclaim from the fan base, right? Like it would only come from the fan base. It would only come from fans saying that was a really special achievement there, getting the 62.
Fans were cheering the shit out of 70 and 73 home runs.
Oh yeah.
They only stopped cheering because steroids were bad. Even though baseball knew about it, everybody knew about it. The fans didn't give a shit.
I'm just saying, would they make a record out of 62? Would they make that a chase? Would that be something they would focus on?
Of course, they're going to say that.
No,
but
nobody would care.
Well, you're talking about it would, in order for anybody to care, it would have to be like really touted during the broadcast, and I don't think that the broadcast is going to have the leeway to, because by doing so, they're acknowledging that. In contrast, the other ones are tainted, and MLB doesn't want to acknowledge that, right? Like for better or for worse, they don't want to.
You see the Hall of
admit
Fame
any fault.
MLB wants
different,
15
though.
years to just be forgotten.
Yes.
have you seen Judge's second half number, or have you seen his post All-Star game numbers? It's insane.
Yeah,
he's got a 532 on base percentage. He's batting 436. He's got 9 home runs and 21 RBIs in 10 games.
What are they going to pay him next year?
Well, that's a good question, Garth, and that's where I want to take this is, I mean, I don't know who made the point about load management for Aaron Judge, right? They need him healthy through October. There's going to be potentially some more extra off days sprinkled in there for Aaron Judge, which is going to hamper his ability to get those numbers. The more home runs he hits, it's like bad for the Yankees as a franchise, right? Like we get it, but also like we're good with 106 wins. We don't also need you to hit 85 home runs. It's a weird, like counterproductive accomplishment that he's doing because he's doing it in the final year here. Like it's hard to even wrap your mind around where to begin how the Yankees approach this.
He's only played 140. I mean, on 2021, he played 148 games. Other than that, you're looking at 99 games, 28 games, 100 games, 112. They need him to be healthy.
And you know what's funny? Yankees,
go ahead, Greg.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, you're talking about it, Adam, from the Yankee standpoint. Have you guys seen the most awkward interview moments I've seen in baseball this season have all been people asking Aaron Judge about his future with the Yankees? Something is up there. If you're reading body language, man, something is up there. I'm not going to be surprised at all. In fact, man, I'll tell you, I'm going to downright predict on the Walkoff podcast, July 31st, he is not re-upping in New York, man. I'm telling you.
I agree.
I agree with that.
Super
100%.
Reacted to questions about the Yankees going forward. You guys have seen this, yes?
Yeah,
yes.
the All-Star game, and he's like, "Oh, there's lots of Yankees to have as your hero, kids."
Children, exactly. Yeah.
It's pretty cringy.
I think the thing with judges felt disrespected all through arbitration. The Yankees have tried to lowball him, nickel and dime him when he's been the face of their franchise since the second he walked on the field. So I think that there is some animosity there. I don't think he's going to resign, and I think someone's going to give him 8 years, $40 million a year. There's going to be some team
with Jeter though.
Well,
yeah, but I don't know. With
Jeter,
Jeter,
devil's advocate.
But with Jeter, they allowed him to do stuff that they're like, we will make you the shortstop, even though we have a better shortstop on the team. We're going to allow you to keep playing shortstop.
You only made him the captain.
That went a long way.
And have sex with every single woman in New York.
Yeah, you're in New York. You can we'll even pay for all those gift bags. You don't even have to. It doesn't come out of your pocket.
Well, I was just gonna say it's interesting that if you're Judge, from Judge's perspective, you put up the rookie home run record, And then you look at them bringing in Stanton and bringing in Cole in the well into the 300 million range. And then they offer you what, 212?
Yeah.
211? Like, you're telling me that I am 2/3 of those players, you know, and that's a slap in the face. And I think he's out there this year with, he's playing for the Yankees, but he's also playing to be like, fuck you, Yankees. Yeah. So
and Garth's point, Garth, I don't know, Garth's, he looks like a fine young man. You got me, the old head over here. The old head over here will tell you and remember not fondly, but remember detailed George Steinbrenner as a Yankee owner. He would fire general managers if they allowed things to get to arbitration. George Steinbrenner understood arbitration. You're sitting right across from someone I consider an asset, and you're telling him what a bum he is and why we're only going to pay you this amount. To Garth's point, that clearly took place. They even had to settle outside of the arbitration because the Yankees were sitting there saying, we're getting killed in here because we keep needing to come down on our own guy here. They ended up not even going all the way through the arbitration process. The Yankees just said, what's the word? What's the word when you give up?
Concede, forfeit, flag.
Yankees just waved the white flag and said, okay, yeah, what's the number? Okay, here it is here. So yeah, this is a Bo Bichette Toronto Blue Jay contentious relationship happening right now in New York, I think, with Aaron Judge.
This isn't just the extension contract. This is like the last 5 years of Aaron Judge being a Yankee, and the Yankees doing everything in their power to nickel and dime him while they dole out $300 million contracts to players that aren't as good as he is.
Good point.
Agreed.
And he's the only Yankee that like baseball doesn't hate. He's like a born and bred Yankee, and we weird, don't hate him. It's just like, why? The entire fan base is like, please don't get rid of the one Yankee that the world doesn't hate. You know, he's so much more valuable to the Yankees than anywhere because, people love him. That's hard to do in 2022 is be a lovable Yankee.
Good point.
All right, I just want to quickly welcome Jim from Ballcap Sports to the panel today. How you doing, Jim? Nice to see you.
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me on here.
Good. We were just in the middle of talking about Aaron Judge and the mega season that he's having. If you want to chime in on the season he's having, whether or not you think he has any shot at threatening Barry Bonds' record of 73, and or what the Yankees are feeling with Aaron Judge right now.
Well, 73, I guess all of us who remember when the single season home run chase used to mean something. Like, should we all be rooting for like a 20 home run August from Aaron Judge to do that? I'm the comments there towards the end. He's one of the few Yankees that you don't hate. And that's very accurate. I agree with that 100%. I like Aaron Judge, even though he's a rival. And I don't know. I guess I'll throw this out to everybody else. If Aaron Judge gets to 62, it's not technically the record anymore, should we kind of sort of care? Because we know that all the other numbers north of 61 were not done on the up and up.
Joel threw that out. That was the first. That was the first point Joel made about the topic.
When he said that.
It is interesting. I think the general consensus was hands up in the air. Like I don't know. It's.
I thought it would be special. I agree with you. I think it is a special thing. That's my opinion. Why I brought it up.
You agree that baseball has to admit though that steroid was the reason, and I don't think baseball's going to do it.
It has to be special.
Baseball might not, but the baseball writers might.
Oh,
yeah.
That is a good point.
Yep. No, it definitely would be something where it wouldn't be a record, but it would still mean something. It would be the first time that something wasn't a record, but it was really special.
I agree.
Very true. Okay, we are just going to get your thoughts, Jim, on Mike Trout, and then we're going to open it up for the panel discussion on everybody else's topics. So, obviously, Mike Trout, new back condition. What are your thoughts on Mike Trout, his future in baseball, and how the Angels should proceed? Does this affect how they approach handling Shohei Ohtani?
I hope that Mike Trout can give us, the great Mike Trout that we've seen. I was looking at his, I think, what is he, 30 right now? So my hope is that, or what I'm, I guess, hopeful for is that maybe he doesn't have a career with this back thing where we, maybe the peak Mike Trout window is maybe smaller than we thought, where maybe he could have stretched his career out to his late 30s, like we've seen with Miggy and Pujols. Maybe he can't do that. Maybe we still get some good years with Mike Trout here while he's in his early 30s, because you can kind of get through aches and pains and chronic things in your 20s and early 30s, but when you get to your late 30s, that'll start to be a problem. So I'm hopeful that we're still able to get some really good Mike Trout years. Just, you look at it and maybe he has a tough time getting to 3,000 hits. Maybe he has a tough time getting to, or maybe he gets to 500 home runs. I don't know how far beyond he get from number 500. So maybe we just have to adjust that. The Ohtani thing, regardless, I think the Angels hold Ohtani. We see how this offseason goes. The Angels are sort of at a crossroads where, how do you trade Shohei Ohtani? But if he tells you behind closed doors, I want to be traded, and because this I'm not going to re-sign with you. I'm going to hit the open market and I'm going to go to a team where I feel like I can win. I feel like you have to try to trade him, as difficult as that is. And that's regardless of the Mike Trout situation. I think that probably really depends. What do the Angels do this offseason? Are they able to build? The pressure will be there to build a team that can make a playoff run with Ohtani. And we are, this time next year, if they don't, all going nuts with Ohtani trade rumors.
And we'll get a hint, Jim. We'll get a hint what their thinking is, right, with their managerial hire. Is it somebody develop a lot of young talents in a Shohei, someone that's ready to win now, because we've got Trout and Shohei now. So we'll know sooner rather than later where their mind is at.
Definitely.
Comment here from the YouTube live chat. New Brunswick, Canada guy says Aaron Judge, Mookie Betts, and Juan Soto will make up the first $1 billion outfield for the Dodgers in a couple of years. Funny. All right, Jen, let's go to you. Your topic is George Springer related or not George Springer related? Floor is yours.
I can kind of tie a couple of things together here. So let's just set aside acquisition costs at the moment, right? Okay. So that we can do this. Sure. With Luis Castillo off the board, let's just say that the Jays can make one move only. Who is the one guy not named Shohei Ohtani or Juan Soto that you would want them to add at the deadline? One guy only. So forget acquisition costs at the moment. So is it, do you think they need somebody because of Springer and needing to be rested 2 out of 4 games against Detroit? Do you think they need to move an outfielder and bring in an outfielder who's a lefty bat? Starting pitcher, who's your guy? Bullpen, who is it there? One guy, go.
All right, Jim, let's start with you. We'll get your thoughts, and then
I don't know if he's available, and I know there's a concussion thing right now. I would love to see Jock Peterson as a Blue Jay. I think that it would not cost a ton because he's a rental player. He's the immediate impact lefty bat. You can slide him into the outfield. He'd be perfectly happy DHing. I don't know if he's going to be available. And again, he's on the IL with a concussion situation right now. So what kind of lingering issues are there? But if he's clean, like comes back, head's not foggy at all, Jock Peterson would solve so many. Pop, lefty bat, shouldn't cost a lot because he'll be a free agent. He's a rental player. I love it. I go Jock on that one.
All right, Craig, what do you think?
Well, let me just add on then. Let's make the deal and get Carlos Rodon in that trade as well.
Yes, sold.
This is what we were talking about earlier, the acquisition. And I know, Jen, I'm breaking the rule. I'm just saying to go back to when Garth was was taking what I was saying as punting on the season. If the price is right, because Rodon and Jock Peterson only address 2022 Blue Jays. They don't address going forward. In fact, you probably don't even want Rodon to opt into his contract next year. Like that's right now. If that asking price is a Groshans or a Lopez, I'm way fine. If it's the Martinez or the Moreno that Blue Jay fans see making it rain with, now I'm out. Guard, this is actually an exact example of what I was talking about earlier. So, Jen, forgive me for breaking the rules for talking about the acquisition cost, but just to bring it back full circle to what we were talking about earlier.
I will just step in and say that I allow it, as that would technically be one move. And that's how Jen prefaced her question. So the loophole, we're giving you the loophole on that one, Craig. Garth, what do you think for this team?
I got nothing to say because that's my exact trade. Like, I would love Rodon and Peterson. Acquisition cost to be low. I mean, Rodon might like it in Toronto and opt in for next year, but he probably won't. It's just, it seems like it would be it's almost like a too good of a deal. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost too perfect. So.
Whether or not Rodon opts in, at the very least, that can't be part of the trade cost, right? Like they can't. Yeah. Whatever the Giants might be able to get.
Option. It's not a team
exactly.
Option.
They have to be reasonable there.
Yeah, the Giants can't say, well, maybe he'll sign next year.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, well, maybe he won't. So who gives a shit? So
Well, aren't we seeing the Giants in free fall mode right now? Like, how are they looking to trade Carlos Rodon? Are you kidding? They just brought him in to be the front end. Well, they're not playing good baseball at all right now. The Dodgers are significantly better in that division, and the Padres are probably about to land Soto. Even if they don't, the Padres are better than them. So San Fran may be surprise sellers at the deadline. We may be onto something here.
Well, and the Padres are getting a guy back to play shortstop pretty soon. So who's pretty good.
He good?
I hear he's good.
I've heard but never seen. Joel, how would you like to see this team proceed? You got one move. Give us something.
I'll just give you something. That deal, I would take that deal, but I'll give you something different just so I'm I was saying it would be interesting to go to Colorado, look at Dylan Bard and maybe Charlie Blackmon, bring in a lefty bat. You're not on the hook there for too long with Blackmon, and you get a big closer type reliever in on your bullpen, and just plugging different holes, but then you get that lefty bat at the same time. Not a great outfielder by any stretch.
Bard just re-up.
Yeah.
Well, then that goes out the window. Then I'll go for Scott Barlow in Kansas City. Can you grab him?
Yeah. He's great too.
All right. And Rick, what do you think the Jays should do as an outsider, as a White Sox fan? What do you think?
Like I said, Hap would be probably a good fit as a left-handed bat, depending on how much you have to give up for him. And then another one that no one's really brought up that you could probably take a chance on, maybe like a Noah Syndergaard. If the Angels are willing to use some of that contract, that would be a good one.
Sadly, we don't have R.A. Dickey anymore to trade for him, though. So.
I think for me, I'm torn on this because a left-handed bat didn't feel like a priority until George Springer got injured once again. I really want to say a starting pitcher, even if it's unsexy, like a number 3 or 4 guy in our rotation, where you can put Stripling back into the bullpen. It's not ideal, but I think Stripling to the bullpen with the addition of a new starter is a substantial upgrade to our bullpen, more than we can appreciate. But man, oh man, with George Springer, and if we are going to either miss time with George Springer or we're going to have to manage his workload, whatever the case is over the next 2 months, Scott and I talked about this on Friday, but like Raimel Tapia has filled in better than we could have hoped as a fourth outfielder, but he has played a lot of baseball for this team. So my concern with the step down from Springer to Tapia is not as concerning as I would have told you in April, right? But if we are going to see Bradley Zimmer play as often as we have been seeing Raimel Tapia, that is a big concern for me. So maybe we really do need that left-handed outfield bat. That's a big concern for me. All right. Great topic, Jen. Do you have any last 2 cents that you want to add to it before we move on?
No, I do like the Peterson. My brain's failing me right now. Thank you. I do like that suggestion. I've always been more in the camp of go big or go home, to be completely honest, on all of this. So prospects are for poor teams, type idea. So I'll keep what I'm thinking sort of to myself, but I just wanted to toss that out there because I put it out on Twitter a few days ago, and I think the most popular response was Luis Castillo. So then, of course, that was out the window. So I just was curious how people would want to pivot from there.
Can I throw out there? What would we do as Jays fans if the Blue Jays had done that trade? If the Blue Jays had sent Moreno and Tiedemann, basically, 3 of the top 5 for Luis Castillo. Because Seattle's got Ray, they have Gilbert, they have Gonzalez. I'd say the Blue Jays rotation is a little bit better, is better than Seattle's with Manoah and Gosman and Barrios. But still, to pay that premium for Castillo, I don't think I would have been that happy as a Jays fan. Maybe I'm on an island there. Anybody else?
Wait, Jim, we know the fans scream bloody murder. They went nuts for Simeon Woods Richardson and Austin Martin last year. They went nuts for that as the return price for Jose Barrios. This is twice that.
Yep. Yeah. I'm glad they didn't get him. I'm glad they did not step in the Castillo deal.
What is it with the Reds and the Seattle just trading? Is it just like the Reds are just sending all their players to Seattle or what?
Yeah.
Anchor too, eh?
One piece at a time.
That's Suarez.
All right. Great topic there, Jen. Let's go to Garth now. Garth, the floor is yours. What are we talking about?
Mine kind of ties into the Mike Trout thing. And I mentioned how like the generation before was probably Griffey. Every generation seems to have that player that's just a little bit better than everybody else. And so I'm kind of thinking like now that it looks like Trout's time as the top dog of the league, who's the young guy that's gonna like hold that mantle for the next decade? Is it gonna be Soto? Is it gonna be J-Rod? Is it gonna be Acuna Jr.? Is it gonna be Vladdy? Like, who is that talent that you think can like carry the league for the next 10, 12 years?
Can I just ask for a point of clarification?
Sure.
By carry the league, do we mean like the mantle of just like greatest ball player, generational talent, or do you mean like from like a marketing face of the game standpoint? Because Mike Trout was never that.
I think it's both. I think it has to be both because, I mean, the league did a shit job with Trout, to be honest. But I mean, Griffey was everywhere,
right?
So I'm kind of just, who's going to be that next face of the league, who is just a supreme talent, supremely likable, on Wheaties boxes and shit, like just who's the next unavoidable player?
Okay,
and
very good.
And it has to be for like a substantial amount of time. Like Ohtani isn't 22.
Tatis. I'm going to say Tatis. I'm going to step in and say Tatis because the flair, he speaks English, which seems to be a deal. It was never a deal when they were bringing it up last year about Ohtani. But he's got all the swagger. When he's on the field, it's just electric to watch him play. It's an injury thing, obviously. You're worried about the injuries. But when he's out there, like, is that a flashy son of a bitch? And that's the type of guy that the young generation want to see, pimping the chain, flashing the bling. I was on this show last week or the week before saying, bury the jacket, fuck the goddamn home run jacket. Let's be old school and put our heads down because nothing's cooler than that. But this next generation want to see the flair, and that guy is flair from top to bottom. As long as he doesn't kill himself in a car accident, and stays healthy, that guy's probably going to be the face of baseball.
That's terribly dark, but I do agree with you. Like, he is exciting to watch, but as you stated, if he's going to be the face, he has to be healthy because that's what we're dealing with Trout right now, not being able to stay healthy. So if Tatis can't be on the field, he's not as exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just put this out as the counterpoint to Tatis. How many Fernando Tatis Jr. highlights have you seen this year?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. But same could be said about Acuna last year, right? Acuna's it's an injury. It's a year-long injury. It's terrible. It's terrible to say. But Ohtani missed a year with Tommy John, came back. Like you can't put a year. Judge had 4 years of just being, and then now he's challenging 60, right? So I'm not going to put a young injury and say that that's who this guy is going to be for the next 18 years. I'm hopeful that he gets off the motorbikes in the off season. But he was the cover athlete of MLB The Show at what, 21, 22? That guy's got some serious swagger.
For me, the biggest red flag with Fernando Tatis Jr., though, is just that when he did have that shoulder injury last year and his response was, oh, don't worry about it. I've had a shoulder injury like my whole career. This has always been an issue for me. That was just like a big scary red flag of something that you don't want to hear a guy say after you just gave him $300 million.
No, I know. It's a risky pick. He's got injury all over him, but I think for max potential on any of those guys, if we're taking health out of it, that's the guy who's got the biggest ceiling on bringing baseball to another.
I guess
platform.
If we don't take health out of it, it's a pretty short list, and it's not a very sexy one.
A question related to that: whoever it is, whether it's Tatis Jr. or whoever, how does baseball go about marketing them?
I think there's so many things that MLB has dropped the ball on when it comes to marketing.
Agreed.
But I think some of the big things I think would be like just fucking put them on YouTube, give them a fucking microphone, let them do their thing. Like I want to see these guys on podcasts. I want behind the scenes stuff. Like Manoah in the All-Star game mic'd up. Like that was riveting television. And they need to start doing that type of stuff.
For just to step in here and agree with you on that, Garth. I know it's persona non grata to mention Trevor Bauer, but Trevor Bauer, I mean, for all the huge piece of shit that he is, what he was trying to do with his media and his like YouTube and the behind the scenes vlog, like it was just, you'd follow his daily, like day to day. I'm waking up in this hotel. Here's my team breakfast. Here's my pregame workout. He's mic'd up. Like the mic'd up wasn't necessarily translating to the broadcast, but it was translating to his YouTube page after the game, watching him interact with the fans and hecklers and whatever. Like that is the exact.
Also, the communication on the field. Him and Tatis had that moment where they were putting their eyes up and they were like, they were goading each other from pitcher to hitter, and like, as opposed to a guy like Madison Bumgarner who makes it really personal, is going to like hit a guy if he's going to go fight a guy if he hits a home run on him and flips the bat. Like they got to a point where it seemed like they could talk shit to each other, and then whether it's a strikeout or it's a home run, let it play for the good of baseball, right? Like you get blown up, eat it, whether you're a strikeout or home run. That was a very, very small moment when Bauer was in the league last year that was happening, and it kind of disappeared.
Yeah, all the off-field stories we don't have to touch with Trevor Bauer.
I'm just talking about that specific.
But yes, having a villain makes your heroes that much better, right? That is why Batman is the best superhero, right? Because he has the coolest supervillains, right? And having guys like Trevor Bauer and his antics on the field, or a Joe Kelly, or there's just
Alek Manoah.
Alek Manoah is maybe the next guy to just be that like swagger asshole, and like I'm here for it. But I'd like to see more guys mic'd up more often. Promoting their personal brand away from the game is maybe the best way to do it. I think MLB maybe is a little hesitant to put that center stage, right? Like they didn't promote anything that Trevor Bauer was doing with his YouTube channel, right? Because they all want to retain that power and that attention themselves.
They're not making money off of it. That's all it is. But But that's like you're not seeing the trees, for the forest. It's like the more people that are watching that shit, are turning into your baseball broadcasts,
Mhm.
that are buying jerseys, that are putting money in MLB's pocket. So when I see guys like Tatis and Acuna, and like honestly, my guy is J-Rod. Like that guy is otherworldly. You know, I think MLB just needs to like allow them to be themselves and put a camera and a microphone in their face every chance they get.
His
I think-
exchange with Liam Hendricks was fantastic.
Mhm.
Like just him, give me the ball, just kind of pretending to throw it in there. That was great.
I feel like the mic'd up element, the All-Star game, growing that has grown year over year, right? We're seeing more and more. This last year, we saw the pitchers and the catchers mic'd up with Cortez and Trevino, and that was great. So the more that they can grow that, the better, because baseball that can be a game changer for baseball. NFL can't do that. NBA can't do that. None of the other major sports can do that. MLB can, even if it is just reserved for, when it's Sunday Night Baseball or when it's the All-Star game. However more they can build that in is great. But also, to answer the question about the face of baseball, I think part of it, because I was thinking and looking back, I'm like, well, it was Mike Trout, and it was Mike Trout by far and away. And why was it only Mike Trout? Why didn't we have more? Because I do feel like right now there is an argument to be made who could be the face of baseball. Julio Rodriguez, home run. That is fantastic. That's a great one. Acuna, Tatis, Vladdy, Juan Soto. Part of it, I feel like if it doesn't have to be one, if it can be 5 or it can be 10, that would just grow baseball and be so good for baseball. And I hope that that's the way it goes, because I feel like the NBA had that for a while. The NBA really built, because it got to a point where, after Jordan, it was like, well, who's the guy? We don't know who the guy is. But then there was an infusion of young guys, and all of a sudden, Shaq and Kobe and KG and all that. And there was, instead of just one, like it was with the NBA with MJ, it was a dozen guys. And I hope MLB can go down that road and have a dozen guys that they can just build the league around, make sure they're mic'd up. And these are guys, part of it too is, are they flashy? When I look back at Mike Trout's peak era, a lot of the other players that were MVP candidates or MVP runner-ups, they were designated hitters, they were corner infielders, they didn't run. Part of what was exciting about Trout was that he was in center field, making great plays, hitting home runs, and stealing bases. He was doing everything. Everybody else in the league at that time, not everybody, but a lot of the other big names were 1 or 2 dimensional. David Ortiz, designated hitter. Miguel Cabrera, first baseman at that point. Jose Bautista did play some third, but a lot of right field. When you have shortstops and center fielders and guys that are stealing bases like those guys are, I think that helps to the excitement, because they're creating more excitement on the field. So I hope we end up with, to wrap up my whole point, with all these guys. Now, Vladdy's not stealing a bunch of bases, and Soto's not that great in the field, but the more multi-dimensional players, exactly, they're fun to watch in the field, at bat, and just, I hope instead of one, I hope we have a dozen of them that we can build the next 10 years on, because I think that will be better for baseball.
Also, to play on that, you get the matchups, right? One versus the other.
Exactly.
When it's just one, it's just one. It's not Tatis versus Acuna. It's not the matchup of the individual within the system.
Exactly. And that's almost like, so they don't necessarily have to be villains. It could be good guy against good guy, right? One of the best Marvel movies ever was Captain America Civil War. And it was good guys against good guys. So we can go Tatis against Acuna and Vladdy against Soto and all of that and still do just as good, as opposed to Mike Trout against whoever from whatever. I think that, yes, that's another ability to that. That's a good call. Good call on that.
All right. Good topic, Garth. We appreciate that. Rick,
yeah, very good one.
Let's go to you now. The floor is yours. What are we talking about?
All right, this is going to be a little bit different, but I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that the baseball creator community lost a big part of it this week when Joey Buckholz, the Utopian Baseball Universe guy, passed away this week. So He brought a lot of the baseball community together, and he was a truly good person, putting out baseball content, never cared about anything but the people, and he loved interacting with people. He passed away this week, so I just wanted to make sure he got acknowledged this week. So,
very good. Condolences there. Well said.
Thanks, Ray.
All right, Jim, let's go to you now. What is a topic you want us to fight about? The floor is yours.
What do you guys fight about? Let me think about one. Let's.
All right, you think about one, and we'll come back to you.
I feel like, well, I'm glad that I'm happy that you came because I have only a few more minutes left. I feel like it should be trade related at this point, and the question of let me put it this way. All right, here we go. I got it.
Sure.
I know.
Good stalling here. True entertainer.
Here's what I'm doing. You have to make a splash right here at the trade deadline. We want to do something with the Blue Jays prospect system landscape that it is. Tiedemann, Moreno, Groshans, Martinez. How high are you willing to go on that list to trade for the pieces that are left out there? And let's take Juan Soto off the board because Juan Soto is not a realistic not a realistic play for the Blue Jays, but looking at the other pieces that are left, the Pablo Lopez's, the Frankie Montos's, the Josh Bells, the Ian Happs, are you willing to go to the highest level and add Moreno into a deal? Or do you want to, my take is I want to hold on to those guys because I want to have a team to build around Vladdy, because Vladdy gets the Supermax deal in a couple of years and they'll need the free agents to come along. But to a point, you got to make some moves. How high are you guys willing to go on that prospect level to secure some of the top trade pieces that are out there?
That's a good point, Craig. Let's start with you because I know you're the wet blanket when it comes to the your words, not mine, when it comes to this year's trade deadline.
Well, Witt Jr. and Wander Franco went to the future of baseball. Thanks for coming to me on that one. Anywho, as far as this question, no, I'm joking, man. No, I'm playing with you.
I know.
Talking about before, if it's not, you said take Soto out. If it's not a Frankie Montas, then no, I'm completely against going all in for the 2022 Toronto Blue Jays. Frankie Montas, for me personally, I have him in the same breath as Alek Manoah. I have massive love and respect for Frankie Montas and what he brings to the table. Again, putting him in the same breath as Alek Manoah. So I'm absolutely willing to Jose Ramirez type package, type level, which is going to have to include a Moreno or a Martinez. For anybody else shoring up this bullpen, adding a 3 or 4, 5, I mean, you flip and name it. Ian Happ, you name it. I'm absolutely not in for including any of our top guys. And I think you guys know, unless it's Groshans or Otto Lopez, I simply don't believe in Groshans or Lopez. So if there's a franchise out there that believes in them and is willing to plug holes for the 2022 Toronto Blue Jays, that's A-okay with me. But making it rain with the Tiedemann or the Moreno or the Martinez for anybody not named Frankie Montas, I'm out.
I concur with Craig on that one. I think that's pretty well said. Anybody else want to chime in on that? Give their 2 cents, maybe some disagreement?
I agree. Moreno goes for a top 3 starter.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good topic there, Jim.
I was willing to give up, some of those guys for Castillo.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like there's Castillo, Montas, and then there's a pretty significant drop to Pablo Lopez. So I don't put him in the same category as those two guys. So unless Miami's willing to part with like Alcantara, then yeah, I'm good.
All right, fair enough. Craig, let's go to you next then. Floor is yours. Great recommendations, by the way, with Bobby Witt Jr. and Wander Franco. Hopefully his health can return there with his hamate injury in his hand. But
You guys, but in all honesty, I love the conversation you guys were having there because it was all about how to market these players. Because in all honesty, Bobby Witt Jr. and Wander Franco aren't good answers because those markets are just deplorable. But you guys were coming up with smart ways that be being more inclusive and more entertaining. So a Kansas City or a Tampa Bay Star could actually work going forward with some of the great ideas you guys had. In all seriousness. If I was smart for my topic, I would just say, Jen, what was number 2 on your list? Because, she always 4 or 5 that are better than what I have. But it is trade deadline. So I do want to do, like Jim said, hey, let's do something trade related. What's the trade deadline move that stands out for you? For me, if you're a Blue Jay fan, you go far enough back. The Seattle Mariners had a big time outfield prospect, Jose Cruz Jr. They made it, buddy. We will not the phone. If you're calling about Jose Cruz Jr., we will not even answer the phone. This is a complete non-starter. Their bullpen was the worst in baseball, but they were in first place. That entire week leading up to the trade deadline, the bullpen blew every single game, including the night before the trade deadline. So now the night before the trade deadline, Seattle panically makes Jose Cruz Jr. available. No team was prepared to make an offer. The Jays sneak him for Paul Spoljaric, and oh boy, I'm blanking on a second reliever as well. Like 2 iffy relievers because Seattle panicked. We ended up with Jose Cruz Jr. I'll fully admit, Cruz Jr. didn't have the career I thought he would. He had a good career. I thought he had potential to be great. But that's one that stands out to me. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, Jose Cruz Jr. was available. And then the next thing you know, he was a Toronto Blue Jay.
That was so awesome when that happened. I don't mean to jump the gun and jump at it, but I was so excited when they traded for Jose Cruz Jr. And then the excitement level slowly dipped as he didn't turn into Ken Griffey Jr. But I was so excited when they got Jose Cruz Jr. That was one of my favorite Blue Jay trade moments at the deadline.
Sorry, Craig, can you just clarify what your question was?
And any deadline that you remember, I assume we've got Blue Jay fans here. I mean, we can take everything they did in 15 with Tulo and that is, you know what? No, never mind. If that was your favorite moment, that was your favorite moment. But something like that, just a trade deadline move. We don't have to keep it Toronto Blue Jays. We got Rick here, like just a trade deadline move that stood out to you, that made sense. Somebody mentioned earlier, Adam Duvall. Atlanta doesn't win the series last year without that move. That's a great example. Something like that.
Does this count Jose Bautista for Robinson Diaz?
Well, it turned the franchise's fortunes around, so why not? Nice one,
right? No, but that was trade deadline, right? That was August 2009.
Well, I was gonna say, was that deadline or was that waiver deadline?
Or was that waiver deadline? That's what I'm actually inquiring to see if that was actually a trade deadline move, because I remember that was late August, it could have been early September.
I'm not too familiar.
We don't talk about Robinson Diaz too much.
We don't.
Timlin and Spoljaric for Jose Cruz Jr. And guys, other GMs, Jim, you'll remember this. Other GMs had to hold press conferences to explain. For a call, they made it clear he wasn't, like other franchises had to explain. How did the Blue Jays just get Jose Cruz Jr. for that package? You couldn't come up with a better package than that?
It was insane.
I've never seen it before. It's crazy.
That was nuts.
For me, it absolutely was the Tulo deadline there with Price coming in and stuff. I mean, maybe it's because I'm out west and I know that like Toronto Blue Jays are Canada's team, but like the passion and the energy level out west is not the same on a day-to-day level that it is in Ontario and Toronto. But like that summer for me as a Blue Jays fan who like watches them every day for my entire life, to all of a sudden be surrounded by like other people who turns out like baseball and we're talking baseball was amazing. I'd never experienced anything like it. Like, I don't know who actually was a fan and who was a bandwagon fan, but I didn't care, man. I got to talk about David Price and Tulowitzki and how the Jays did against the Yankees yesterday with like people in my real life. And it was amazing. So for me, that was an amazing trade deadline. The energy that brought to the Canadian fan base, at least out west, phenomenal. So a lot of fun there.
2013, 2014, and the first half of 2015. I would buy. I like going to Jays games, to baseball games by myself, by the way, because I don't depending on who I'm with, I don't want somebody making social conversation with me. I want to watch the game. Just leave me alone. Let me watch. And so I would buy myself relatively often. I'd buy myself a 500 level ticket, and I'd head on down, and I'd sit in the 100 somewhere behind home plate. And nobody ever asked to see my ticket because there weren't any fans and nobody cared where you sat. Nobody, just, don't cause trouble and we'll look the other way sort of idea. And I was doing that. I did that for quite a few games in 2015. And when they made those deadline moves, all of a sudden, forget being able to go sit in the 100s. You couldn't buy a 500 level ticket. They were not available. Like, that place was packed every single game. And I can, the excitement level, the interest, it just blew me away. And I think, did anybody see David Price coming? Did anybody see that? Did anybody see that coming? Really interesting, sort of toot my own horn personal story on this one. I had certain connections, whatever. But I know some players were really pissed off when they traded for Tulo. Some were pissed off because they were friends with Jose Reyes. But one player that I talked to was pissed off, not because Reyes specifically was gone, but because they didn't think the Jays would make another big move. And that player actually said to me, Troy Tulowitzki isn't what we needed. We need a pitcher, and there's only one pitcher who can help us, and that's David Price. That player said that to me 2 days, 2 days beforehand. And it was just as if all the dominoes had fallen into place. Like, just wild. It was a really kind of cool thing that they turned around and they pulled that trigger 2 days after the Tulo deal. So,
well, the thing with 2015 was that was the year that Toronto remembered that they're not Kansas City. You know what I mean? Like, that was the year that they remembered, like, holy shit, we're a big market team too. We can trade for big players. We can sign big players. Like, that was the year that was like, all right, 18 years of mediocrity, like, we're done. And it was a big, like, the repercussions are still with us today. Like we don't look at Toronto as being a small market team. Like, we are Yankees, we are Dodgers. Like, they have bigger payrolls, but we can throw out money to these players. I think 2015 just reminded, people who were old enough to watch 92 and 93, like, holy shit, yeah, like, we are a big team, and I think that was a really important trade deadline, like, for a generation of Blue Jay players or Blue Jay teams.
You guys' point as well, it packed, to Jen's point, to Garth's point, it packed the stadium. We were talking, this is a point I didn't get to make last week. Remember last week, a topic was, I wonder if Major League Baseball will get concerned with all these Canada COVID. I know it's not. That's just how the Americans perceive it, the Canada COVID rules, and force a Blue Jay playoff to happen in Buffalo or in the U.S. And no way, exactly what you just guys described. Major League Baseball wants 50,000 waving those towels at the Rogers Center. What's the word I'm looking for, Joel? Like, just scenery-wise, you're the director. It's from a scenery standpoint, it's breathtaking. It's beautiful. From a crowd noise standpoint, it's amazing.
Cinematic. It's epic.
From a cinematic standpoint, it's gorgeous. And that was all born, yes, in 92, 93. But remember, Rogers Center was brand new then. It was going to sell out no matter what in those years. That was all born in 2015 and 16 with those playoff runs.
I'm going to go White Sox on mine, not to interrupt Craig, I see. July 31st, 2008. I think somebody brought it up earlier. I think it was Garth. One of my favorite players growing up was Ken Griffey Jr. And Ken Griffey Jr. coming to White Sox, although short-lived and still that White Sox blackout game in 2008 with Griffey making that throw home, getting the put out at home, and then Tomei hitting the walk-off. I'll never forget that. So my favorite deadline deal, even though small. I mean, we end up getting beat by Tampa Bay.
If you're trading for Ken Griffey Jr., it's not small. I don't care if he's out there pitching.
Good point, Garth.
All right. Last thing to Craig's point before you move on here. Jose Cruz Jr. being a last minute, maybe panic move by the Mariners, however you want to phrase it. I know we don't want to get our hopes up about Juan Soto, but like maybe is that a way that the Jays can still get like a Juan Soto? Like if the offers aren't there, and is there a chance there's a panic and we can get him for not a discount? We're still going to be an overpay. What's that?
Like they're not going to panic with him. They still have him for 3 more years. Like they're not trading him for Paul Spaljarek.
Sure. All right. That's fair. It's not going to be a value or like an underpay kind of a value offer, but I don't know. All right. I don't even want to spend any time on the Juan Soto speculation because that's just pipe dreams at this point. Okay, let's go to Joel now. Joel, the floor is yours.
All right. Okay, so over the last about 10 days on my TikTok account, I've had a lot of people sending me videos and imagery of pitchers using foreign substance again. Colin Pache for the Tampa Bay Rays. Seems like Garrett Cole's got stuff back on his hat again. The checks have gotten very lenient. It went from you take your hat off, you take your glove off, you get a full check done. Now it's this like weird little soft hand rub when you come off.
Touch your fingertips.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if we get to the point where players are caught, like if a substantial player is caught using, is that the type of punishment would you give them the type of punishment that would be equal to the steroid users previously? Because before I never said that any of the players should get banned from the Hall of Fame or that their legacy should be ruined because it had been 100 years building up to the ban last year. But now that it's fully in place, they know what they can and they can't do. If they're caught and you're a top pitcher, does that mean it should cost you the Hall of Fame? Because unlike steroids is an even playing field. Pitchers and hitters can use it. There is not some magical gunk to put on your fingers to give you 15 more, miles an hour on your swing, right? There isn't something to get you more exit velo on the ball. So is that something where a big player gets caught, they should have to face the same punishment that the previous era faced?
Hey, everyone. I have to jump off. I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me and having me on for the long toss. It was a good time. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for your time, Jim. Have a great night. Okay, that's a great point. I think the distinction between sticky stuff and steroids that you've made, Joel, is a good one that not maybe everybody realizes, is that steroids was a two-way street between hitters and pitchers. And you're right, there isn't a sticky substance that batters can just put on the grip of their bat and now their ball travels 115 miles an hour. I don't know what to do about a punishment that gets doled out now. I mean, I've been suspicious of the sticky stuff making a return now too, ever since I've seen that's the sticky stuff check, right? Like, are your fingers currently sticky? Nope. Good. You're good.
How do you punish people from the Hall of Fame though? Every era they've tried to gain an advantage. I mean, you tell me somebody who's 100% clean. I mean, Hank Aaron, the true home run leader, according to people who don't want to acknowledge that Bonds was the career home runs leader, use greenies or amphetamine. So, I mean, how do you judge then? I mean, for the people who don't want to let Bonds in, it's you can't just pick and choose who you're doing, because everybody tried to gain an advantage at a different point in time, and not everybody. I know that's, But
how about I rephrase it? Do you think the voters, if you were to suffer the same type of suspension, like, you get caught, you're a big guy and you get caught, are the voters for the Hall of Fame going to say, he's a cheater, I'm not voting for him the same way I didn't vote for Bonds, I didn't vote for Clemens?
That's a good question.
Here's a good example. of something kind of similar. Sosa got caught with a corked bat.
Corked bat, yeah.
And no one said, oh, well, there's no way he's making a Hall of Fame now.
Mhm.
It was only
That's
until like the big steroid thing, and they all had to go to Congress, and they made a big to-do about it, even though the majority of players were on steroids, and the majority of players don't cork their bat. That was kind of, steroids were kind of looked the other way, and it was no big deal. Corking a bat was still a big deal then. And he got a suspension, and then no one gave a shit about it. So I think it's an interesting conversation. But honestly, I don't think the voters will even give a shit. They'll be like, he served his 10-game suspension, never did it again. And that's the way to look at it.
Like Gaylord Perry and stuff like that. That doesn't, they made it in despite, so.
The Sammy Sosa cork bat thing was 2003. I was 14 years old when it happened. Was not followed. I don't know if the internet was a thing in my house other than for like 11 minutes a month. But my memory of the coverage there was it did feel like it was a significant like sweep under the rug. I believe the excuse that I had heard, and maybe you guys can correct me if there's more information, but it was played off as it was a case of mistaken bat. He had grabbed the wrong bat off the rack. He took someone else's batting practice bat.
It was his batting practice bat, yeah.
Yeah, it's not that he was cheating. He just grabbed the wrong bat. Sure, he needs to be suspended because it doesn't matter, but it wasn't like this malicious, dark thing that was... So... Do you guys remember that better than I do? Because like I said, I wasn't following it as a 14-year-old.
Sosa and McGuire and Bonds were carrying the league at the time. The league wasn't going to like go ape shit because Sammy Sosa had a cork bat. Mm-hmm. He was one of the faces of the game. So like I said, I don't like that. That is he caught cheating, and Garrett Cole, he didn't get caught cheating, but obviously he cheated, as did most players. So, I just don't know. It's an interesting conversation, but I don't think writers and voters are going to give a shit.
It's not even the best cork bat story out there. Has anyone heard the Albert Bell cork bat story? No?
Like one where he went in what's his name?
They literally
pitcher went in and got it out of the air duct, right? Oh, yeah. The Mission Impossible.
They had a pitcher go through the ceiling and literally go in, get the bats, and confiscate them back. Look it up. It's a great story.
Interesting. Feels like a TikTok that Rick needs to do for us.
Nope, I'm on it.
All right, sounds good. Looking forward to it. Okay, interesting though. I don't know. Anybody have any other thoughts on how to handle a sticky stuff suspension, whether or not it is a Hall of Fame ban? How many games should it be if Garrett Cole tests positive for sticky stuff? Is that established?
10. Is that 8? 10. It's 10. It's 10 right now. Yeah.
So 2 starts.
Which is interesting because they did the thing with steroids where it was 10 to start in the first off season after 2005. I believe it was 10 as the first. You get caught once, it's 10, and then it escalates. But then right after that, it jumped to 50. And then now I believe it's 80. It's interesting that I thought that in the off season that you would see something similar, but that's a collective bargaining thing that you would have to probably figure out what a 50 to 80 game suspension for something like that. Because I figured it was warranted. You get caught with a bunch of crap on your hand, you're not supposed to use that stuff. You should be out for 80 games. Same way as putting a big needle in your butt.
But I think the answer to Joel's question, will it affect Hall of Fame voters? The answer is a follow-up question. And the follow-up question, Joel, is who's the pitcher in question? In my mind, no doubt that Clemens and Bonds are not in the Hall of Fame because they were both top-tier jerks and top-tier jerks.
Great point.
Who's going in this year? David Ortiz. On the Mitchell report as a steroid user, how does the public feel about David Ortiz? Love David Ortiz. How does the media feel about David Ortiz? Love David Ortiz. So that's all I would say there, guys. Kami, the answer to your question is, who's the pitcher in question?
So if we're going by character, though, wasn't Ty Cobb, don't people believe he was one of the biggest POSs there was out there? He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but he was voted in when everybody else was also a bigot and everything like that. So the people voting were like, "Yeah, we agree with all the piece of shit stuff he did."
He got in because of it.
Yeah, I think that's and that worked to his favor in that case.
On a side note, I did see position players that are found with foreign substance on their glove or uniform will not be ejected by the rule unless the umpire determines it applied to the baseball to help the pitcher. So you could have you could throw it to the first baseman, he could rub it.
Yeah, around the horn, you load
throw
it
it right back.
Well, a lot of ways to cheat when $100 million is on the line. So, okay, we do have a few minutes left. Just want to double check. Craig, we got your comment. We got everybody had a turn on the floor before I take over. Okay. I have two options.
Hey, you're me.
First one is Blue Jays related. Second one is baseball in general related. Which direction should we go? Number 2. Rick says number 2. He's sick of talking Blue Jays.
No, I love talking Blue Jays.
I know. Let's go. So this is a question that I posed to Scott. I threw it out on Instagram. I got a lot of feedback. It was kind of just meant to be a mental exercise, if you will, but this past week, the St. Louis Cardinals came to Toronto. Obviously, with the COVID restrictions, some players were placed on the restricted list. Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt. I know we talked about this with the family starting situation last week with Jen. But they missed that series in Toronto, okay? So, for better or for worse, it's the way it played out. My question is to everybody, and I know this is a hot take, overreaction, but should that disqualify them from MVP considerations? Paul Goldschmidt having an MVP season, if you specifically elect to do something that is in what you deem to be your personal best interest and at the direct cost of your team's ability to win, is that an MVP? So let's take politics out of it as best we can. I know it's hard to avoid in this subject, but
I'll step in and go yes, because I think what Sandy Koufax famously didn't pitch on, was it Yom Kippur during the World Series? He's like, I won't pitch on a specific Jewish holiday. So, and then he's Triple Crown winner, Hall of Fame, one of the greatest pitchers of all time, right? You get to make your, I think, positions. You get to take your positions as this isn't religion or anything, but it's a standpoint that some people feel really strongly in, left or right. And I don't think that anybody on one point has the right to tell the people on the other point how to live their lives. So I don't feel like that really. It's almost a point of religion with how heated it is. So I don't penalize anybody who's made the decision at this point to not be vaccinated.
Okay, so here's how I want to just isolate this. I want to take the COVID decision out of it, okay? Because everybody has their strong beliefs, one side or the other. I want to eliminate that, okay? So the way I want to frame this is if Aaron Judge decided to skip a series in Houston so that he could coach his daughter's Little League in a series back home, in my opinion, does he get Father of the Year votes? Yes, he does. But he should not get MVP votes.
You're just talking about personal decision versus what's best for the team.
Yes. And a lot of the feedback that I got on Instagram from people was, well, if someone has to take time off for like mental health, that shouldn't disqualify them, or if there's a death in the family. But I would also like to clarify, I think mental health is the same as a physical injury. If you need time off for mental health, that is no different than breaking your wrist. So that's not an elected choice. That is something that happens to you. And I think crises, whether it be a death in the family or whatever, also isn't an election. Like, it's not a conscious decision that you make. So I just want to, as best we can, really isolate, regardless of what the choice is. Someone has decided to make a choice that says, this is what I want to do for me. I know that the team is going to suffer, and I don't care. Or I don't care enough to put the team first.
It's just not a rule in baseball, right? Like the reason that they can't come up to Canada isn't some rule in baseball. It's the way that society is a societal issue, right? So society is deeming that these people cannot cross a border, right? So it's just like I put it to the fact that it's society that's stopping them from moving. It's not they're not going against something that's in the rules of baseball that says, hey, you can't do this. And then they're like, well, if I can't do that, then I'm not playing on Tuesdays, right? It's something that it's enforced by governments, right? It's beyond baseball, the enforcement of this. Is that not true?
I had to coach his daughter's team all 19 times that they play the Blue Jays this season. He could miss 19 games. For 162, he still qualifies. I don't think that I'm not seeing. For me, there's no doubt here, Adam. He would still qualify. That's missing 19. If it's a Kyrie Irving situation, who misses half the season, now we're talking something significant. Baseball, 6 months, 162 games. No, I don't have a problem with it at all. And again, I had a lot of problem with their decision, but as Adam has said, that's going to be a different conversation. But them missing a few games because of, as Jen framed it, personal decision versus someone else's personal decision. No, I definitely think you're still in the MVP race as far as something like that is concerned. In fact, Adam, couldn't you make the case that Judge sits out these 19 games, we're going extreme, adding more games, and the Yankees still do well? Judge's MVPs even heightened because he had the Yankees in a position where he could actually step away and thinks that ball could still roll, because when he was there, he knocked it out of the ballpark, no pun intended. So I actually don't think it takes them out of contention for any of these things at all.
Okay. Well, like I said, this for me, I think is just more of a fun mental exercise to challenge our considerations, and I think you guys have all made some really good points. So appreciate it.
Family related, you should be exempt. Like if it's something family related, to your point, Craig, I mean, you only get one chance to do things, and I feel like you can't go back and change it. So,
all right.
But to Rick's point, the paternity leave is like what 7 games? The paternity leave is triple with the 2-game series these guys missed, by the way.
It can go, I mean, yeah, like you said, bereavement's also a certain amount of time. So,
all right. Well, like I said, I know it was not going to be a popular take. The point is to have some mental exercise and challenge our own beliefs and considerations. So I appreciate all six of you or us approaching it with an open mind and hearing everybody's side of view. So that's one of my like pet peeves about society right now, is that we don't have those conversations with people across the aisle. So I appreciate that we could all civilly discuss this and disagree in a fun way. So very good.
You notice I've been silent because I didn't want to be civil about it. So
we could talk in depth after we end the recording.
I didn't want to start smashing shit on your podcast.
All right. Then last thing, I'll end with this. Then this will be a palate cleanser before we wrap things up here. Matt Chapman. Should the Blue Jays just like extend him, and should he just be our third baseman moving forward? I see some nods.
Well, like we who's going to be our we brought in Chapman because we thought Orelvis or Grochans would be that in like a couple of years, but we have it now. So, like, why do we need to wait like 2 years for those guys? Chapman is like, he's on a tear right now. He's playing great D. He's still relatively young. Like, why couldn't we sign him for another 4 or 5 years? I would not be adverse to that at all.
Agreed.
I guess the only downside to Chapman is just the money, right? Like you could have Chapman at 15 to 20 mil a year, or you could have Groshans or whoever else at like league minimum, right? But I'm starting to just really feel like if we're not going to be like a luxury tax team anyways, and the difference is we have a payroll of 150 million or 168 million, like, yeah, let's extend this kid. It's but not a stance I expected to have 5 months ago. So
I don't like it, guys. I don't like it at all. What for what? We've got him under contract for the next 2 years. What are you looking to? This is way pushing the gun, way pushing the envelope on a re-up. We're 18 months conversation being a legit conversation.
I'm not necessarily saying like let's give him a 6-year contract this offseason. I just mean like, did you not feel coming into this season that Chapman was going to be here for 2 years and then gone? Like Marcus Semien was here for a year and then gone, right? It was only ever a stopgap situation. Do you feel strongly about that with Matt Chapman? Because I've really had to reconsider my opinion on Matt Chapman, and I've loved him since he came in. I've been high on him since day one. I thought 30 home run potential, platinum Gold Glove at third base there. But
when he was brought in, it was framed as being for 2 years. That really was the framing of it, to bridge that gap between, now and bringing up the young guys, right? That really was how it was framed. And I think he's definitely showing more value than maybe just the defensive side, because we knew he was bringing the defense, right? And so it does at least open up that conversation or open up that idea. But then, so if you're going to do that, if that's even something the Blue Jays are thinking of doing, then it also changes how you look at those prospects as in terms of trade chips.
Yep, big time. I see in the live chat questions about Matt Chapman's age. He is 29 years old and
just a baby.
So yeah, he'll be, looks like I can't do the math on this, 94 days. What's that, 3 months? So he's 29 years and 3 months old for Matt Chapman. Okay, I'm good unless anybody else has any parting shots they want to make. We'll say our goodbyes and our outros, but anything else anybody wants to add before we do that?
Well, Chapman's on for 2 more years, and that's how long it's going to take Jose Ramirez to realize, okay, I've hitched my wagon to this Guardian franchise I shouldn't have. There's your next third baseman for the Toronto Blue Jays. There's my parting shot. I'm still on the Jose Ramirez train.
He'll stay in Cleveland.
I know, Rick. I know. I know.
Well, you can take him out of the Central. Please take him out of the Central.
All right, Greg, let's start with you then for our goodbyes. I love your take. I thought when Jose Ramirez re-signed that contract extension there with Cleveland, I didn't think it meant that he was untradeable. Like, if anything, he's more tradable. It's just a matter of who wants what to happen. But still got my fingers crossed for J-Ram as well. So where can people find more of Craig Ballard? We appreciate you once again coming back for Long Toss. We love all of your takes. I know sometimes they're genuine and sometimes it's just to be a devil's advocate, and everybody's good for that here. So we love you, Craig. Where can people find more of you?
You cannot. I don't do social media anymore, but absolutely, as per usual, I'm going to recommend. Now, a lot of you are in here watching the Walkoff, so you're familiar with. For some, this may be your first time walking into the Walkoff. Hit that follow, hit that subscribe, follow them on social media. As good, I've said it many times, I will say it again. As good a Toronto Blue Jay podcast as exists. You want it? Well, Craig, I like to hear interviews from minor leaguers, from executives, from front office people, from the beat writers. I mean, you flip and name it. Go and look at the work these guys do and the work that's coming. So that's, honest to God, that's all I want to promote is the Walkoff podcast.
Well, we appreciate you and your kind words, and we appreciate the audience and the enthusiasm. And Scott and I work really hard and hustle, but it's a lot easier to do so when we have phenomenal guests such as yourselves and phenomenal audience with all your feedback and your interaction. So kudos to you as well. Thank you for that, the kind words, Craig. Joel, we better let you go. I know you're on the beach being chased by bees and margaritas.
Dude, I've been on my roof for the last 2 hours. Well, I've been up here. That's the only place I could get signal.
Look at this.
Holding the phone in my arms the entire time. I'm so tired.
Like, is there more to this story right now?
No, I just came up to the lake for my I guess I can say this part. There's some parts I'm not allowed to say, but I got a 4-year story release on Tommy John's life to be able to actually put that movie into production. So as soon as I got that signature, I came up here and now I'm relaxing. So
very cool.
And then hey, call me on TikTok. You can find me there.
Very good. All right. Thanks, Joel. Appreciate it.
But
as
now I'll get off
always.
of here and hopefully I'm alive.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your week. Hopefully you get some sunny weather. All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, Joel. Rick, thanks again so much for taking the time. Where can people find more of you? On TikTok, I know. We're looking forward to that Albert Bell cork bat explanation. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as it's always been. I did one on 1972 Steve Carlton season recently. I'm going to try to get back out there again. I did start a petition to put William Hoy in the Hall of Fame, first deaf baseball player. Hasn't taken off like I've wanted it to, but if you do get a chance, go to the TikTok page. There is a link to put him in the Hall of Fame. Came up with hand signals that are still used in the game today.
very cool. Interesting story. I hadn't heard that one before. Okay, we have, as I look at the YouTube live chat here, Garth. Lots more Garth being chanted in the YouTube live chat. So, Garth, thank you so much again for taking the time. What are you working on? Where can people find more of you?
Man, I got quite a bit of stuff going on right now. I mean, you can always follow me on Twitter, Garth Orgy. I actually have a little contest going on there right now for the Walkoff. I'm trying to get you guys a few more Patreons. So at the end of August, I'm going to be giving, I've been doing little card giveaways twice a week or so through Twitter. So yeah, I'm going to give away a pretty good package of cards to one of your Patreons at the end of August. So everybody sign up and you can win something great. And then I also recently started, I'm going to start like a new YouTube channel where,
Awesome.
yeah, it's called Garth Orgy's Wax Packs. And I open up old packs of cards from the junk wax era and basically just make up my own facts about the players that are on the card.
Right.
So I got one episode up. You can search me at Garth Orgy on YouTube. And yeah, so that's what I got going on these days.
Very cool. Well, we appreciate the support and the encouragement as well with this, the Patreon and the card giveaways there. Be sure you text Scott or myself or shoot us a message on Twitter, the link to your YouTube page, and we'll get that added to the show notes and stuff for that. The show notes and links for everybody's social media down below. So everything's there. Jen, how's summer school going?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's all I can say about it. Yeah, but getting through it and watching the Jays and just living life right now. But people can find me on Twitter at baseball_Jen. That's Jen with 2 N's. And, you know, most of the time I'm pretty even keel, but I do like sometimes, you know, posting things just to sort of generate conversation, and it does get a lot of fun interaction, some of them. So
very good. Well, thank you as always, Jen. We'll catch everybody next week. Like, share, comment on the video, and we'll see you next time. Go Jays, go.